The Boondocks is one of the most influential pieces of black media ever made. And with Black History Month happening right now, plus the fact that it had a continuation that was cancelled, more on that later, plus the fact that I am black, I want to answer the simple question: should the Boondocks even come back in 2025?
Also, look at the Patreon, link in the description.
But before we get to if it should come back, I feel like we should discuss how it would even come back. With the current mindset people have with reboots right now, I feel like it would be crucial for a potential reboot to come back with some sort of change or a switch up to keep things fresh. Especially since, I know a lot of people won't admit this, but the most successful reboots tend to be the ones that diversify themselves from the original as much as they can. First, and probably most popular way to do this would be a time skip. Have Riley, Huey, and the rest of the cast age up a few years. Maybe have the two become adults. Not only does this inherently bring new episode ideas and interactions to the table, but it would also be a way to show how the characters have changed through the show without too much effort. Imagine a 20-something-year-old Huey reacting to Trump being re-elected, or hearing Riley's opinion on the Drake and Kendrick beef. Seeing the side characters come back like Thugnificent, Jasmine, Uncle Ruckus, Tom. Hell, I want to see where the Booty Warrior is at. Pause. Wait, that might be the craziest sentence I ever said on this channel. Point I'm getting at is that it'd be the best way for them to keep the original culture of the show and to do something brand new. It would also be a way to explain away some real-world issues the show would have with its production. As I'm sure you're aware, the original voice actor for Granddad, John Witherspoon, passed away a few years ago. A time skip would be a way for them to explain that by simply saying that Granddad 2 passed away. I don't know how well that would slide for the original fans since he was such a big part of the show, but it's the reality the show would have to face regardless. Now, the second and most realistic way the show would come back is a straight-up continuation, Boondocks Season 5. You could recast Granddad, you bring back Regina King, Cedric Yarbrough, Gary Anthony Williams, and they essentially start doing the same social, political commentary that they're known for. Not too big a fan of this outcome for two reasons. One, it's the least creative of the three that I'll be talking about, and two, if the fourth season of the show was any indication, the writing of the show would need to pick up lots of steam in order for it to get back to form. This is also the safest option. More people would immediately recognize the characters, the nostalgia would be massive, and most importantly, old audiences would feel familiar with the show and would be more inclined to watch it. Then there's the third and possibly most wacky possibility that was genuinely there a few years ago. To quote /film.com, Williams provides the voice of the boy's cantankerous Uncle Ruckus, a racist who says horrible things about black people and believes he's actually a white man. Prior to the reboot being announced, Magruder was trying to get an Uncle Ruckus live-action film crowdfunded. On the crowdfunding page, the explanation for the live-action Uncle Ruckus story was simple. There's always been an interest in a live-action Boondocks movie, which to me was out of the question considering Huey and Riley are essentially impossible to cast. The animated feature would cost around $20 billion, but a live-action Uncle Ruckus movie would cost a fraction of that. So just for the hell of it, we had the costume made and it was pretty amazing. To see Gary actually transform into Uncle Ruckus, it's quite a surreal experience. I've never expected the transition to be so completely seamless. An Uncle Ruckus live-action film would be something. I don't even know what the plot would be about because there's just so much that's been happening since the original show's run. But part of me really just wants to see what that would look like. But now that we've gone over the main ways the show could come back, we have to talk about the pros and cons of it coming back. The first pro being new material. The last season of the Boondocks aired in 2014. Since then, Trump has been elected twice, multiple wars have broken out across the world, the internet has become more influential than ever, with streamers and YouTubers becoming the new celebrities. Kanye has been on a generational crash out, the biggest rap beef of all time happened, etc, etc. So much shit to talk about. I could drop at least 20 ideas off the top of my head for a Boondocks reboot. A show like this is almost entirely dependent on topical issues, and with how much people love hearing about stuff that's going on currently, it'd be a no-brainer for it to come back. I'd make the case that it'd be even more popular than it was back in the day, not only due to the nature of the internet, but the fact that satirical comedy is pretty popular right now. If YouTube channels like Meat Canyon, RDC, Caleb City, and a bunch of other dudes are anything to go off of. This leads me on to the second and probably biggest factor that could lead to a reboot or continuation being successful. That being the show would have a much wider reach than it ever had before. Think about it, when the show came out in 2005, TV was still the main way people consumed content. Social media was still in its infancy, so most people got their news from newspapers, news channels, the radio, or word of mouth. Now in 2025,
we have the internet!
Meaning that every episode would have the potential to have a viral moment online. And with the show's unapologetic style and controversial subject matter, you best believe people will argue about every single thing the show has to say. From the perspective of the showrunners, their show becomes more popular, more people watch it, whether they love it or hate it, and whatever streaming service it's on won't just abandon it after one season. Hopefully. The influence that the Boondocks has had already on the internet culture is palpable, and I think if it did return, it would already have a good chance of being incredibly popular online, which is the main way people discover shows that they end up watching now. The third, and to me the most important pro of the show coming back, is that the show's blunt and unapologetic nature is something we need more of. We've seen shows like Moon Girl have episodes shelved, and Dead End Paranormal Park essentially be dead on arrival, but these are shows that were able to hold a mirror to the culture and say we're not doing things right and here's how we fix it. And those shows are super rare, but important. I really didn't want to have to bring up the Proud Family reboot in this. I didn't feel like making the comparison was right, but it just worked too perfectly. Louder and Prouder, while yes being a show that covered black issues very bluntly, suffered from the fact that it lacked nuance. It spoke about issues affecting the culture without doing the same for issues within the culture. There were many moments where it feels like the show lacks self-reflection, and the writers want to prove to the audience that they're so progressive and smart, without realizing that there are really dumb moments within the show that prove this lack of self-reflection.
Black people can't be racist! I agree. Racism is prejudice plus power, but we can be jerks. I give you that.
This can't be real, right?
The Proud Family felt like it was talking at the audience about issues like police brutality and whatnot, but the Boondocks could talk about those issues while also acknowledging the fucked up things going on within the black community. That's why characters like Tom, Uncle Ruckus, and Thugnificent exist. In a time where people are less willing to do that reflection themselves, a show like the Boondocks has the potential to bring those conversations out of people. Now, this all sounds great on the surface, and I think most people would say that it's a no-brainer that, yeah, they'd love the show to come back. However, it's not that simple, for while the pros sound great, the cons might just ruin everything to come out of a Boondocks continuation. The biggest problem with the Boondocks coming back today is the simple fact that it's a different time. The Boondocks was a wild show, and it was only allowed to thrive in the time that it did because people back then weren't as reactionary as they are now. That may seem like a big generalization, but it's true. The internet is a place where you can see the most rational, perfectly articulated sentence, and someone can spin it into something you never even hinted at. Now imagine what would happen to a show like the Boondocks that was A, not at all hiding what they were trying to get across, and B, said things that could easily be interpreted or spun to fit the agenda of either a right-wing grifter or a fake progressive. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Now, do I think that if Aaron Magruder was around to oversee the show, would he care about the public in an opinion? No. But the whole point of the show is to start those conversations around real issues. But the problem is that people's media literacy is so fucked in the head that it's almost impossible to achieve an actual convo around the show. That's also another issue, because the show needs its audience to be able to critically analyze the themes and messaging of the show. However, that kind of media literacy has been so dumbed down recently, to the point where if it did come back, I can already see comments such as, "It's not that deep," or "It's just a cartoon," or "Just watch the show." It's so bad to the point that I feel like since half my enjoyment of the show has always come from talking to other people about it, I wouldn't enjoy the show nearly as much as I would if it came back today, and I had to deal with you internet niggas. It's conflicting for me in that way. I'd love for it to come back, but part of me knows it just wouldn't be the same. That isn't it for the cons though. The overall production of the show has been a glaring concern since the cancelled reboot that I mentioned before.
I had already recorded 8 episodes of it as Uncle Ruckus. I'd done 8 episodes, but they decided they weren't going to make it. They thought it was taking too long to get made. Anybody who knows animation knows I can record something today and it won't be out for at least a year. So John Witherspoon died. They were still going to figure out how to do his, character, but still make the cartoon.
Guess there's no hope of this ever getting rebooted to do the reboot?
I would not say that because, we made some episodes and then a few years later we came back and did more episodes and then, a few years later they came back and asked for more. I would never say with this show there's no chance of it getting rebooted.
In an age where studios and streaming services are more fast and loose with the production and distribution of their shows, it'd be extremely difficult for a show like the Boondocks to have that freedom to make the episodes they want, while also pleasing whatever company they have to please. Simply put, it wouldn't get the respect it deserves from audiences and from whoever owns the show. So, should it come back? Probably not, if I'm being completely honest. It would be cool to see, but at the same time, with all the problems that would come with it, I don't mind rewatching the show every February.